I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
What is up, everybody? Let's welcome my special guest, Mike Shumann, bro. Long time no see, buddy.
Well, so yeah, it's good. You called me the other day, and I said, how come I haven't heard from CG? I got to get on the show here in the postseason after watching it all year.
I know. Schedule's been kind of tight with me.
Well, you have another job, so.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's good to hear from you, man. But the Niners season just hasn't been exactly as planned, you know?
It was, it went from, okay, let's say really positive, then the injuries, and you're starting to wonder, and then towards the end, it's like there's no way. So it's been interesting, and as a result, you got a lot of aged players making a lot of money. Their Super Bowl run, everybody's saying is over, but that's not the case. But a lot of major decisions with their coaching staff, some star players, our quarterback. And so there's a lot to be determined this offseason.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot, like change of the coaching staff and going young with players because some of the guys are coming up in age, and then the contracts are the problems because cap space wise, it's just they're gonna have to find ways to maneuver a little bit more.
Well, it's kind of interesting, McCaffrey got the bag and got injured, Bosa got his bag, hadn't really, and when I say bag, money bag, hasn't been as effective. Debo, probably the prime example of it, and so and then IU gets it, and the poor guy gets injured. We paid him $28 million last year not to play. So it's, I'm not sure. I'm not a guy who, of course, when I came up, we were making $75 to $100,000 a year, and to see this money being thrown around now and, and to say, well, we got to pay Brock $50 million. That's the going rate. No, you don't. It just takes one owner to say, no, I'm not paying that kind of money for this position. And then everybody else would kind of fall in line. And I think who was it? Tampa did sort of that with Baker Mayfield. They gave him 3 years, $100 million. That's reasonable, right? So, and he's a star and a great player, and I think he threw 41 touchdowns this year. So he had a great season, made his money, and unfortunately they just didn't get there. He fumbled, unfortunately, in that game. So.
I mean, I think a team-friendly deal does make a lot of sense for Brock because he's more better around talent. But don't get me wrong, he did okay last season with lesser talent, but it's just not the same with all the supporting cast,
I wasn't on his bandwagon at first. I've seen players like him come out of nowhere, have a great 2 years, get injured, and you never hear of him again. And kind of felt like maybe this is where it's going after he started to falter the second half of this year. Now, let's talk about his injuries. Blew out his elbow, hurt it again towards the end of the year, hurt his shoulder, all on his throwing arm, already weak throwing arm. And that's my pause or hesitation to give him that $50 million kind of contract. And guy gets the money and gets hurt, you never hear him again. So I personally would make him play out his 5th year. Bring in somebody, I like is that kid at Ole Miss, Jackson Dart.
Oh, yeah, that dude's got to be
Yeah, so maybe bring in another one like they did. I think they have the 11th pick this year in the first round. So, and then see if Brock's going to hold up. I mean, as anybody that's reasonable and sees that with his arm, the elbow especially, I can't give this guy money. I got to see one more year. Had that great year 2 years ago. Last year kind of struggled. I need to see one more good year from him before I give him that kind of money. Nicest guy in the world. Everybody loves him. And when he had that horrible game, he came back and gave his offensive lineman Toyotas.
That's the worst part, man.
Nobody talked about his horrible game because he did that. So he's smart enough to to defer, that kind of thing. But
they should have returned those cars back to him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you heard what Peyton Manning said. Peyton said on his Monday Night Ride, no, you don't give your offensive lineman anything unless you go to the playoffs.
That's true.
And then if they play horrible, you're definitely not getting anything. So I don't know. And Toyota funded that because Brock's not making that kind of money. So it was a great PR move by them. And in some ways, I felt like it made Brock look worse. That's like trying to buy somebody's friendship, or I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's like, are you kidding me?
Trying to be.
But hey, if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm happy.
Yeah, of course. Even if you're not the best offensive lineman and you're like the worst starting center in football, hey, I would love me a Toyota.
Exactly. So I'd like to see him make him play out his final year, and then maybe find somebody, because Brock too, he's better in that play action when the run game was working. Then when he had to throw 40 times a game, you could see what happened. He's just running around for his life in the back, waiting for somebody to get open. And he's better with the play action and getting the ball out early. And with that said, he has to get the ball out early anyway because of his weaker arm. And he processes better than most quarterbacks I've ever seen, pre-snap. But by him having to throw the ball so early and with loft because of his weakness in his arm, most quarterbacks will lead you out of contact. He's leading all his receivers into contact. What's the kid? Jefferson? Justin?
Oh, are you talking about the Mike?
I've lost my thought.
Well, his arm.
No, the wide receiver, number 15.
Oh, you're talking about Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings. Have you ever seen him make a clean catch?
He's made some.
Brock leads him into collisions. If he started full time, he wouldn't make it through the season, because Brock leads him into collisions, not intentionally, but because he's got to get it out so early.
Hospital balls.
Right? And for instance, Joe Montana, who I played with, and Bill coached this, Bill Walsh. I'm running a little curl in. If the DB's on my right side, Joe throws it to my left shoulder. So that takes me away from the defense. So as a receiver, when you're not sure who's behind you, Joe was directing traffic for you. He was that accurate. So, but he didn't have to throw the ball as early as Brock. So Joe threw you out of collisions. Brock's sort of throwing you into collisions. So that's a little bit of the issue I have with him. And it's all because of the way he's built. Weak arm. He's got strong legs. He processes early, so he can get it out early. But if he waits a little longer, he's getting guys just racked. So I'd like to see one more year out of him and just see if he is in fact the guy.
But you think that taking a team-friendly deal like a Baker Mayfield would probably be better for him right now, because if you look at what's going on, he is kind of expected to get a contract. But I would not disagree with you. Like, it just dictates the market for him for some reason.
Well, it'd be interesting. I saw something today. The Tennessee Titans trade for Brock Purdy. Nobody's given up a first-round draft choice
for a quarterback like that.
Nobody. So Kyle's got some guy that he thinks he developed, which he did, and which kind of understands the way he thinks. And so I think he feels like he's found his guy. He's really Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0 in some ways. So
interesting. Okay. I mean, I guess you can say he's a little bit more mobile than him.
Yes. No, he's got some differences, but they both kind of made a living in the middle of the field, and towards the end, Brock started to throw a little more outs, but I don't know. I just, it's one of those feelings where he came out of nowhere. Yeah, we saw one good year, a year and a half of him. but his true colors came out. Plus, defensive coordinators in the NFL are quick to pick up anybody. So now they're defending Brock. If you play man against the 49ers, Brock struggles because it's hard to throw the ball early when you're man-to-man. Zones, you're throwing it to an area.
Yeah,
Man,
but if you blitz him a little bit, out of sync, like how Brian Flores has done it, that's where you need
blitz him up the middle. He's not tall enough to kind of see over it, and then play man-to-man. And that's pretty much what has shut down the 49ers in most of the games they got either beat or blown out.
I think we got to just, that's part of what Kyle has to do. He has to evolve better. Like, he has to, like, change up a little bit of his philosophy on offense, and maybe better offensive lineman would be a good start. I mean, you saw a little bit of glimpse of Ricky Pearsall, what he can be. You know, what's your thoughts on him?
Well, I was surprised he was taken in the first round.
Okay.
And as a former white receiver, I'd love to see anybody. I think, let's see, I'm trying to think. I remember Dwight Clark and I started the NFC title game against Dallas. That's the last time two white guys started in the same game on the same team, since then. But it looks like he's got skill. He can run, he's quick, and I think a lot of the things you get away with in college, because he is pretty fast, doesn't translate into pros. You can beat a guy by 5 yards in the pros, and they recover by the time the ball gets there. So
he had to work on separation.
Yeah, he had to learn that, and most of the receivers of the Niners don't get a whole lot of separation. That's what drives me crazy. Ayuk did because he's the best route runner on that team.
Yep.
I think Pearsall and Jennings are better pure wide receivers than Debo. Debo's kind of that
gadget.
But unless you throw him a quick screen or give him a quick sweep, he can't get separation. And then he has more drops, maybe, than any wide receiver I've seen.
Yeah. Debo, the plays have to be designed perfect for him in order for those big plays to happen.
Exactly. And Kyle loves him, so he's not going to trade him. He'll keep paying him $25 to $30 million a year to catch one pass a game. Maybe break a kickoff. And he knew his butt was on the line towards the end of the season. I don't care what anybody says. He didn't go return kickoffs because, he felt like he did that to enhance his worth on the team. So, and there's a lot of people not taking accountability in that organization right now, including Kyle. I've never seen a guy so stubborn, but it is different now with social media. A bunch of guys who out of nowhere, and Cohn's a great example. His dad was a journalist for years, similar type attack dog, which I loved because I would ask blunt questions too. And, a coach will assume you don't know as much as him, so he won't give you a direct answer. So it's a lot different, the media now, Matt Maiocca, Cam Inman. There's not many who are kind of old school beat writers. Now it's all content creators, David Lombardi, Grant Cohn, all these people that a lot of them just throwing stuff out there to see if they can get a reaction. Some seem to know what they're talking
mostly
about.
For clicks.
Yeah, exactly. Get that coach at Washington say he wanted to beat Dion. They're playing for clicks. We're playing for wins.
Oh, you're talking about the Oregon coach.
Oregon, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about Dan Lanning or whatever his name is.
Yes, that was the greatest line I've heard in my.
That was the most interesting one to go with because he kind of made it sound like for real and it got the players bought into it. But
yeah. So it's I don't know. There's just so much to be determined. Maybe more so than any time that Kyle's been head coach this offseason.
Yeah, a lot of his stuff is he doesn't change a lot of his philosophy. That's the problem, and it's starting to catch on because defenses are starting to figure out his offense, and then you look at the defense; it's not adjusting on third downs as usual.
Yeah, he's never been a guy who makes adjustments at halftime. I've never seen them come out and they're just doing the same thing. And let's talk about the defensive coordinator now. I guess Robert Saleh has been interviewed. They'd love to see him come back. It's rumored that they'll pay him higher than any coordinator in the league, which will probably be about $2 or $3 million. And
just for 1 year.
Well, exactly. I think Kyle knows this is his last shot with this group, and really it was last year. because you're rarely as good as you were when you get injuries like McCaffrey got, and it's hard to come back from something like that. You're no longer immortal once you get that first major injury. Now you can get hurt, but with Saleh, he's interviewed with Dallas, he's interviewed a couple Jacksonville, I think, so he's still a head coach candidate. So if you wanted him for 1 year and maybe make that final run, it would be worth it. Although I don't know how many players are left on that defense that he coached.
I mean,
I'd say maybe half. And then he might get another head coaching job and he's gone. So if you want consistency, I think somebody like Dennis Allen from the Saints.
Oh, Dennis Allen, yeah. He won't be a head coach anytime soon.
Yeah, 2-time failed head coach. He's not going to be in that circle anymore. So you can get him for the next 10 years.
And he can change the philosophy of the defense and do a little bit of something different that we need to do.
Right. And just let him take it and just see what he can do with it. I think he's a 4-3 guy too.
Which will work fine.
What's that?
Which will work pretty fine because at least we'll stick with the scheme. And then the only question is, are we going to stick with the wide 9, which is something they've been sticking with for quite some time.
And Allen's a lot like Shanahan. Doesn't like the media. Not real, verbal. But the Saints had one of the best defenses under Peyton when Allen was his defensive coordinator. He wasn't on that Super Bowl winning team, but he was there 6 years, and they improved every year. I think they got to number 4 in the league defensively in his last year before he became the head coach.
He had a good run defense.
Yeah, and he's just a guy I knew him with the Raiders, and when I covered the Raiders, and I just don't really see players rallying around him kind of guy. And I don't know him personally, and that could just be completely wrong. But and Kyle, I don't know. You've been probably around it more than I have since he's become the head coach. But it seems like he plays favorites. He's got, and it's hard not to as a coach, and to the detriment of the team. That kind of thing. So I don't know what the players think of him. They seem to be behind him. You don't get a lot of leaks out of the locker room, which means that's a solid locker room. And so I just think if you're going to go with solid, you're only going to get him for a year or two.
That's what I think.
And Allen would be there forever. And I'm trying to think who else they were looking at. But then Kyle went and said, "Oh, I'm going to hire Sorensen as my special teams coach." No. I'm sorry. It was somebody in-house that was going to become his offensive coordinator. Was it Bobby Slovic?
Bobby Slovic is with the Texans.
Yeah, hold on.
And let me check my quality because it seems that I have an echo here. I'm going to check quickly.
Okay.
I'll try my phone, see if it works better. Hold up, I'll be right back. Leave studio. Hold up.
Play Kubiak.
Okay. Wait, I think you're having the end of the reception right here.
I'm having what?
You're having some echo here.
I have echo. Should I turn it down or?
I don't know how you do it.
Okay. All right. How about now?
Looks fine. I guess it's better than it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, Dennis Allen won't get no head coaching job opportunity because of his resume as a head coach.
Well, and then, and guys who like him who fail as a head coach, they come back so determined to prove that they're a good coach at a defensive coordinator. So he'll be so, enthused to get this team. He knows he's got a solid roster. And Brandon Staley, Staley, who was an assistant to Sorensen last year. He was the head coach at San Diego. I think Kyle brought him in because he wasn't sure Sorensen was going to be as solid as he thought, so he had somebody to help him along. And I think if you're thinking about Staley, that's like hiring Sorensen again. You know what I mean? Yeah. The defense has already been around him. You need somebody new, fresh, like you said. Let's get some more different philosophy, a different way to approach it. Something of that nature. Now, on offense, the guy in-house was Clay Kubiak. He said he's going to make him his offensive coordinator. He's already in-house. And then the league said, no. You got to interview, people, coaches of color and different things. I can't remember the Rooney Rule, whatever it is.
The Rooney Rule, yeah.
Yeah, so Kyle's making these silly mistakes that a head coach should know. You can't just assign this guy as your – and it's kind of a fake title probably to give him a chance to get a better job because Kyle's going to continue to call the plays.
This is like a similar title Mike McDaniels had.
Yeah, I would believe it. So it's so he's got 2 coordinator jobs, defense and special teams, and assigning Sorensen to special teams. Here's a guy who didn't have success as a defensive coordinator. As a player, he was a safety and a special teams ace, so he knows about it. But players kind of sense that wait a minute, this guy didn't succeed as our defensive coordinator. Why is he going to as our special teams coordinator? So it's almost like, I think you almost got to go clean with both of those positions, special teams coordinator and defensive coordinator. And some of the other names, Jet Modkins, Chris Banjo, Chris Tabor, I don't know any of them, but
they got better resumes than Sorensen.
Yeah, Kyle's kind of stuck between, do I stick with people I know who know how to act around me, know how to be subservient,
or do I stick with a friend or somebody I don't know?
Yeah, somebody I don't know, and that's a really close-knit community when you're a coach on a team. So
continuity matters.
You got to have people you like, continuity. But in this case, I think a whole new look on defense or an approach would be better than bringing Saleh back. Even though he'd be the same thing, he failed as I can't say he failed as a head coach. I thought he would be a good one, but to bring him back, he's got something to prove. And for him, it would be to come back and prove to the rest of the league, I still got it, and I can still be a head coach. So it's kind of stuck between a lot of different layers of making a decision here, which is going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Oh, I think you have your echo's messing up again.
Yeah, and yours just distorted.
Okay, I'll try again. Oh, wait. I think we're good now.
Okay.
All right. Looks good to me now because I don't hear the squeaky sound no more. So, yeah, you're right. I think Kyle is just trying to keep the same people, and I think insecurity is something he might have to consider if they don't make the playoffs next year. And
I think if they don't next year, it's time.
And
Bill Walsh and John Madden both made a comment that 10 years was a shelf life of a head coach in any sport. You need a new voice. People that have been there forever stop listening. And, next year, they're going to get really young. I think they have 10 draft choices next year.
12, actually.
So it's going to be interesting. I think we have one more year of the Kyle Shanahan era, so he better make his choices correctly. And if they don't get to the Super Bowl, he still might be around because I knew Jed when he was a little, kid running around practice with Eddie when he was our owner. And Jed doesn't know enough about football to hire a head coach. And that's
he likes to be buddies.
Yeah, well, that's why he sticks with who he has. And, Kyle can keep not fooling people because he is getting to the playoffs. He's been to 2 championship games, a Super Bowl. But it gets to a point where, especially a kind of a prickly personality that he has, I'm sure it's not that bad around the players, but he's famous for putting guys in the doghouse, Ayuk, and hindering their development. And by not playing Pearsall this year, hindered his development. By not playing Cowing, hindered his development. So this is a problem when he sticks with his friends Debo, guys who aren't producing anymore. But now you got to play him because you got to rationalize paying him that much money. And that's why you don't just jump at these big contracts for guys. And the setup for rookies is horrible. The average lifespan in the NFL is 3.3 years. All right. And a 5-year contract, by the time you get to your fit, you might be out of the league. Purdy was close to that with his elbow injury. So the collective bargaining agreement with the players union was a joke because it went 10 years. So that's not going to change for I think 7 more years. So it's just not fair to the players. It needs to be a 3-year deal. And then after that, you just go ahead and either decide to keep him or negotiate and give him a contract. Or maybe have 1 year where you can put the tag on him. Because no player wants to be franchised. If you get franchised, you want out.
That's like hostage for them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I don't know. There's a lot on the line this offseason and more on the line during next year's regular season.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of, if this happens, hypothetically, let's say Kyle doesn't get into the playoffs this following year. What other options would you like to look for the Niners to get as a head coach?
Another option as a head coach?
Yeah, let's say he's gone.
Boy, that's a tough question. I don't really, I was thinking about it before we did the show. When I was a player for 8 years, you never watched NFL on Sunday. And they didn't have Sunday Night Football back then. So you watched it on Monday and that was it. But even then, you're, getting in, trying to get treatment and get ready for, practice on Wednesday. And then once I became a sportscaster for 25 years, I still watch games like I'd watch, okay, we'll use that as a highlight. Oh, that's a good opening shot. So I wasn't watching the game as a pure fan. So now all of a sudden in retirement, I get to watch, I'll sit and watch 20 games in 3 days. I just love it, So it's been interesting to look at it from that point of view as a former player and now more of a fan. So I had the same frustrations that every fan does. It's like Grant will go in and ask Kyle a tough question. The one about, will you evaluate yourself? And you could tell that Kyle was so didn't want to answer it. But he has to because that's part of his responsibility. But he just basically shuts the guy down who asked it, which is in his mind is a stupid question. So that's how it's almost become antagonistic to watch Kyle Shanahan press conference.
What about when somebody asks him that special teams question, man, and then John Lynch had to defend him?
Oh, no. So as going back to your previous question, as another head coach, yeah, I'm just kind of out of the loop that way and don't follow it close enough. I love that coach in Minnesota, O'Connell. Third string quarterback as a player, but those guys make great coaches. So I just went, and if you look at, the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay coaching trees, they're all offensive players that are the head coaches. What we talked about earlier. So, but you're seeing a real change of the guard. Rex Ryan's not going to get a job again.
He's a dinosaur.
The Dallas defensive coordinator, he's not ever going to be a head coach again. So it's that kind of that switch where it's going to more of the middle-aged, 40-year-old guys again. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, Kyle's made enough money now that if he were to be let go and wanted to keep coaching, and be another head coach, he could, I'm sure. But that's the beauty now. They all make enough money to where, they can get fired. They don't care. Solid doesn't care. He's getting paid for next year, I think, or the next 2 years.
Yeah, he could just sit down.
Yeah, but it's such an addiction. Coaching maybe more so than players. Because as a coach, you can't get on the field and do what you're trying to teach your players how to do. So it's even more frustrating, more pressure, because you're the one that's going to take the fall. So it's just interesting how the whole game's changed that way. It's gone to more, of course, passing game, wide open. Guys like Juice, the fullback. You're paying him, well, it was $5 million, knocked him down to 2.5. He's going to probably have to take another cut if he wants to stick around to basically go in motion.
And only just get maybe a few targets here and there and all that stuff. Doesn't really do much.
I'll do that job. 2.5 to just run in motion all the time. Seems like a great guy, good team guy. but that position's almost non-existent anymore. Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh will keep it around, but so it's I don't know. There's just a lot to be determined with this organization for the first time in probably Kyle's career. I don't know. Would you agree?
I think this is more pressure than before.
Yeah, right. So his ass is on the line. A lot of players are on the line, and Debo, everybody's seeing he's a one-trick pony. Nobody's going to trade for him and pay that kind of money.
Especially the injuries too, but doesn't help his cause.
And I said that when he first came here. I said, if he keeps running straight up and down like that, he's just going to be injured his whole career.
And if we keep using him as a running back, he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like, dude, if it's 3rd and 12, go 13 or 14, come back, catch it at first down mark, go down. These guys all take these extra hits. Juwan Jennings, bless his heart, that's the way he plays, but he's not going to last. You got to make business decisions at this level, especially at wide receiver, running back, quarterback positions, because otherwise it's the shortest attention span sport, maybe of all of them. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. We'll definitely see. Oh, so Kenny's got a good question right here. But even though you were a Niner, but what was your favorite teammate, man?
My favorite teammate?
Yeah, of all time.
My favorite teammate would probably be Freddie Solomon.
Okay.
And Freddie just had a birthday yesterday, the day before. He was one of these guys, wouldn't go to the doctor. And I told him, dude, you got to go get this, that, and the other. He didn't do it, ended up having colon cancer, stage 4, and he was gone. So, but he was my mentor. He was with the Dolphins and got traded to the 49ers for Delvin Williams. They sent Delvin, the running back, to the Dolphins. He had a great year, ran for 1,200, and then was injured the rest of his career. And then I went to the Dolphins my rookie year because they traded Freddie. And
he did.
Let go early in the season. 49ers picked me up. I finished the season with them. Bill came on as the head coach, and I became Bill's first starter with Freddie at wide receiver. So he was kind of my mentor and just a great guy to be around. But we had some characters. Jack Hacksaw Reynolds.
I already was something else.
Oh, he was a piece of work. I remember Ronnie was a rookie, Ronnie Lawton. And Jack would come into the meetings with like 7 number 2 pencils. All right. And so Ronnie forgot his pencil and he was telling him, hey, you're a rookie. You should be taking notes. He goes, well, can I borrow a pencil? And he goes, no, that's part of your job. Bring a pencil so you can write down the notes. You can get better as a player. And from that day on, Ronnie was like, I almost give Ronnie more credit than any player that brought the 49ers together. In 77, 78, 79, 77, 78, 2-14, or no, 78, 9, 2-14. But with Bill, we lost like 8 games by a field goal. So you could see it was getting better. And then Ronnie, we used to go one-on-one in practice. And I told him, I said, dude, if you can cover me, you can cover anybody. Because I ran routes, white guy. So, and then like I'd beat him on a route. And he'd come back to me and he said, well, what was it that, how did you know that I was going to lean that way so you broke that way? Did you set me up? Did you? So it was like, I can't believe this. Rookie's asking all these great questions. So then Eric Wright started doing it. Carlton Williams started doing it. Dwight Hicks started doing it. So it started permeating throughout the team. This was 81. And all of a sudden we came together as a team because those prior 3 years, they were just guys making money and just trying to stay on the team. There was no unity, nothing. It was the most divided locker rooms I've ever seen. And so I always give Ronnie that credit. And then from then on out, they went on to win 4 Super Bowls in that era, all with Ronnie on the team. And so he was a special kind of player. And it was hard to jam me off the line of scrimmage. I was quicker than I was fast, although I ran a 4.5. So, and he was a safety in college. So our first day one-on-one, I'd beat him like a drum for 3 or 4. And then all of a sudden, he kind of was picking it up, talking to me. He jammed me at the line so hard, I just stopped my route completely. I didn't even try to get up. I'd never been jammed like that in my whole career. And I just turned around and walked to the back of the line. I didn't know what to say to myself. I go, what the hell just happened? So after the practice, I went up to him and he said, "Hey, what happened there?" I told him, I said, "Nobody's ever jammed me like that. So you're learning and you're learning quick. You're going to be a great."
And he took notes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've been dear friends since. And because he held out in camp, and that had happened in 3 or 4 years with the Niners because we all had second-tier players, including myself. So he finally came to camp, and I gave him the nickname "Lot of Money" because he held out and got a pretty good contract, for a rookie. So, although he went to USC, so I joked with him, he took a cut in pay to come in the NFL.
Yeah, so I guess this Freddie Solomon trade to the 49ers also gave you guys the first-round pick to Dan Buns. Interesting.
Oh, that's right. And then Danny was selected out of Long Beach State, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is no longer around.
Oh, it's not.
I don't think so, because he said that because I remember a couple years ago he even said on this interview, he said all the colleges I played for, they're no longer around.
Oh,
he says maybe I retired them.
Oh, too funny. And who gets drafted #1 out of Long Beach State?
He did.
Right? And then Bill was trying to replace Danny for the day he got there. And then Danny hung on, made the most iconic tackle, goal line tackle,
which goes all the time.
The Super Bowl against Cincinnati on that third down, I think. No, second down, I think. And then Ronnie and everybody stopped. What was that big running back? Pete Johnson or something. Weighed like 240 back. So and then in that year in '81, we started 0-2. No, 1-2. We picked up Fred Dean in the second or third week from San Diego. We won 9 straight, lost to Cleveland week 12 or 13, which is a wake-up call for us, and then ran the table, got a bye, beat the Giants, beat the Cowboys. So it was a Cinderella team that came out of nowhere. Third year of Bills, and I think Kyle took him to the Super Bowl in his third year.
Yeah, right? Third year he did. Yeah, he did in his third year, but it took Bill Walsh 3 years actually to get to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because his first 2 years was struggle.
Yes, and we were at 2-14 and 5-6.
I think it's 6-10.
And 13-3, I think. So it was a Zoom like no other. So anyway, it was. But Bill and John Madden both said after 10 years, players stop listening to you. We need some new blood in here, and I think it's Kyle's 10th year next year, if I'm not mistaken. So
following year will be
okay, so it's 9th year next year. So I think with the crew he has, and we talked about that, what Cowings looks like a player.
Looks like a guy that can make big plays.
Yeah, Ricky had that 8-catch game late in the season, which showed, okay, he can catch, he can play. So you've got some great young receivers. Ayuk comes back, we'll see where he is. Juwan Jennings, I wouldn't start him. I'd keep him the third guy because he just takes too much of a beating. And he's tough, and yeah, he can handle all that, but it catches.
And he does good on the blocks.
Yeah, but it catches up with you. So he's got to be careful there. Guys like that only play 4 years instead of 8. For not kind of thinking things through like that. And Dwight was like that. Dwight Clark. Dwight would go down 10 yards and it's 3rd and 12, and then he'd take 3 more hits. And I told him, Dwight, go 12, come back. So it just used to frustrate me. And but there's things you can do to prevent. McCaffrey's a little like that. He runs straight up and down himself, but he'll get down, to take his hits. And so it'll be interesting to see how he is when he comes back. Because I tore my posterior cruciate, the same one he tore late in the season. And when that happened, if you recall, he got hit on the heels. He kind of went flying and then landed on the front of his knee. And he threw the ball down afterwards, and everybody thought it was because he didn't score. And I said to myself, he just tore his posterior cruciate. And that's why I was so frustrated. The next day it came out. That's exactly what happened. Not that I predicted anything or I'm good at that. I just know the same injury I had. And there's no surgery for that really, or it wasn't back then. So we'll see. That's what, 2 knees in 2 years?
No, but I think the injury was like a PCL sprain.
A PCL.
Yeah, because he dodged a bullet with a torn part.
Right. It was a posterior cruciate, but a sprain is stretching the ligaments.
Yeah.
So if that happens again, he probably tears it. So I hope he's great. I covered him in college. Just a great kid. Just solid. Respectful. He's a great example to be a 49er.
Yeah.
Guys like that, and Brock. That's a solid locker room. I'll just say that. I don't know many of the offensive linemen, which seems to be a little bit of the weakness. And maybe spend some draft money on that this year.
Yeah, go get us a starting center at least.
Well, I was reading Chris Dahlman, who started for the Niners for years.
It's
been 94 team. His son is the center in Atlanta, and his deal's up. So I don't know anything of him as a player, but he's anything like his dad, he can play. So, and that seemed to be a weakness on that line, center, and then when Trent went down. And then how good's Trent going to be? He's what, 36, 37 now? You got guys that can run by him. He's big, but so a lot of question marks. I wouldn't want to be in the 49ers draft room or, deciding what the roster is going to look like next year.
I might have to focus on the trenches more. So it would be like go D-line also and then go mostly on offensive line. And get whatever's there.
Great at finding defensive linemen, that's for sure. And you asked me earlier, head coach, who would you like to? I mean, if it came up, who would you like as a head coach?
Like it has to be somebody that's a little different, has a little bit of a creative, and can involve this team better with coaches.
Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator of the Lions.
He would be good, but I think he's already going to be gone as a head coach. I mean, he's probably going to get a job.
All right. Eddie's excited with the Niner receivers. I would agree, because with Cowlings and Pearsall, you've got your future.
With speed-wise, they had speed.
Well, Cowlings can do that little jet sweep that Debo's been doing all these years.
Oh, yeah.
And can get around the corner. Or throw on those quick screens, and he could do the same thing and could go. So, and Pearsall runs a 4.4, I think, right?
Yeah,
so
pretty cool.
He's got skill, and he's deceptive. He's kind of got that hurdler stride, so he's a little deceptive in his speed. He's one of those guys that gets up on you. DBs used to do that with me. They're like, God, is he ever going to get here? And then I'd blow by him. And they go, So Pearsall seems a little bit like that. Seems like a good guy, too.
Yeah.
He goes downtown San Francisco, gets shot.
Yeah. But if I were to go with a head But if I were to go with a head coach candidate in case this season doesn't work out for Kyle, maybe I go with another guy like Lincoln Riley, because he knows how to develop quarterbacks.
That's true.
And you want to go frustrated.
And he's where, Washington now? Offensive
No, he's at USC.
Oh, that one. Who was the one who left? He coached Baker and Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that's him, Lincoln Riley.
That is him then. Okay.
I mean, I didn't like him when he left Oklahoma, but he would probably be good for the NFL.
Yeah, so that's true. And that's part of the issue with Brock right now. What's this, his fourth year coming up or fifth?
It's going into his fourth year.
Fourth year. So he's kind of developed under one coach. A lot of times it's hard to change your habits. Or the way you play. And, they talk about he's a system quarterback. He might be, and we would find that out if another coach came in and wanted to run something different, where you depend on the quarterback to win. Because all that's saying, the 49ers have all these injuries. Look at Detroit. They had like 20 guys on IR, mostly on their defense, and they're still winning with Jared Goff.
Yeah, but like you said, mostly on the defense, they can overcome that part, but the offense is a little different, man.
Well, it's the same like Kansas City lost all their offense. They brought in
Good point.
30-year-old backs, lost their starting wide receivers. Mahomes still finds a way to win, and their defense isn't that great this year. So, and I don't see them repeating either. Or three.
Reed just knows how to adjust.
Yes. So. It'll be Kyle's not going to change.
Yeah, he's stubborn.
Like Bill would do these little practical jokes in the locker room or something. One time we went down to play the Rams, and Bill was from LA, so he was afraid we're all going to get, it's Hollywood. We're going to see movie stars down here. So he brought us all into the locker room, and he brought a coach in, coach by coach. Bob McKittrick was dressed up as a hooker. Sam Weich as a pimp. Diddy
Oh,
Green as a drug dealer. It was unbelievable. We were on the floor when Bob McKittrick, the old Marine, bald, comes in as dressed as a hooker. And I asked Bob years later, he goes, how did you agree to do that? It was 1979, Bill's first year. He goes, well, it was his first year. So, but little things like that because as a head coach, you got to keep separation from your players. You have to have that ruling thumb up there, because you start getting friends with your players, it doesn't work. And I'm seeing a little of that with Colin Debo, Colin Juice, So
he has his click.
But I don't see Kyle doing something fun like that. You know what I mean?
Like, you don't see it.
Locker room.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit different than most people.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a loose guy. He's so intense, and every now and then do something, at practice. I remember we came out once at Wednesday. We got beat like a dog. Or no, actually, maybe we won. We were beat up, got out on the field. Bill huddled us up and said, you know what? Take the day off. Something as simple as that. We all went crazy. Go get an extra hot tub. Go get it was just like, oh man, this is so nice. You just get a break from it, get away from it, because it's such a routine during the season that you need something to distract you, and unfortunately when you go home, that's really not a distraction. I feel for wives and children of all professional athletes, because they never see them for 6 months. And then when they do see them, they're usually in bad moods, so I'd love to see Kyle sort of loosen up a little bit. And who knows, maybe it would help him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, close out games in the fourth quarter.
So
he needs what what Sean McVay has. He has a game manager coordinator, which is crazy.
Well,
we need one of those.
A little bit of Kyle's weakness.
Yeah, it is.
And it showed up in 2 Super Bowls when he was with Atlanta and the 49ers.
Why not run the ball?
Yeah, exactly. You got the backs you have, and he's a little bit. He runs players into the ground.
Too much, yeah. Doesn't even split the carries like he used to.
Exactly. McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell was a great back. Jordan Mason. Roll those guys in. Yeah, give McCaffrey the bulk of it. But, Mason's better between the tackles than McCaffrey was. Let him take that beating and use Kristen in, other ways where you can get him out in open space. So he has a tendency to run his players into the ground, and that's part of game management also. That's player management, but it also pertains to game management. So I think he's got a little issue with that also. And it's like Fred Warner playing with a fractured ankle the last 4 or 5 games. It doesn't matter. We're out of it. Take him off the field. I know Fred, he's an animal. He wants to be out there for his teammates. But, dude, he could have chronic issues with that now.
Yeah, once he gets older. But right now he's not feeling the pain right now. But as you get older, man, those pains have to catch on.
Well, that might lead into next year or the following year, because he kept playing on it, and it didn't heal. It won't heal properly. So kind of drives me crazy when he kind of not abuses, but overuses player, because no player wants to come out of a game. And back when I played and we're only making $75,000, you can find anybody to come take my job. So you didn't come out of the game unless you couldn't walk. And when I tore my posterior cruciate, I was obviously limping, and my trainer came over, how wide? He goes, what's wrong? I go, what do you mean? I knew something was wrong, but I'm not coming out. He goes, because I had Dwight Clark behind me. And he goes, sit down. And when you tear your posterior, you pull from behind the knee sitting down, and it comes out like a drawer. Mine came out like 6 inches. He goes, dude, you tore your posterior cruciate. I said, I'm fine. I can run. I'm good. He goes, no, you're done. He took my helmet, so I couldn't go back in the game. So that was the difference back then. You played until you could not move. So, and here's a great story. I'm in St. Louis. I need 2 catches for a $25,000 incentive clause, which was huge back then, 1982. I had just been traded there from the 49ers. They signed Ronaldo Nehemiah, the hurdler, and traded me for him. I always tease Ronaldo. I'm a good friend with him. He's got my other Super Bowl ring because he got one in the '84 team. So I need 2 catches. We're up in Green Bay. I catch the first one early in the game. I get hit in the back of the head. I'm concussed with 1 catch away from $25,000. So we go in the huddle. Neil Lomax calls the play, and I go, Neil, what do I do? And he goes, fuck, timeout. Shumann's gone. Get him out of here. And that's how it was dealt with back then. I actually had a coach that told me, if you're concussed and I ask you how many fingers, always say 2. Because that's what they held up. So I went to my coach, Emmett Thomas, my coordinator, the doctor, the trainer. I said, put me back in the game and I'll give you $2,500. And they're all like, dude, get on the bench. You're out of your mind. So Pat Tilley gets injured. Pat goes down. I saw where they put my helmet. I ran and grabbed my helmet because the other guy was a rookie and ran in the game. So the head coach, or the coordinator's trying to call play. He didn't know who's in there. And it's a post corner basically to me and the route that kept me in the league for 8 years. So I run it. I turn around. I don't see the ball. Neil had to scramble, and here comes the ball. And I said, all right, this is it. $25,000 on this catch. I'm concussed. I see 3 footballs.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. That's not good, man. It's like you're kind of like.
In like a split second, I got to decide the left football, right football, the middle football. So I think just by nature, I just went from the outside in, with my hands. And that way I'd get it wherever it was.
Yeah.
It worked. I made the catch. It's 20 degrees, raining, and touchdown. We lost the game like 42-11 or something like that. So, and you could see afterwards, Kenny Thompson was the young receiver. He helped me kind of run off the field, knowing I was concussed. So Monday, we go in for our exit interviews. I had to go in the hospital Sunday because of the concussion. Luckily, I didn't get hit again. You get hit twice with a concussion and go in a coma. So I wasn't smart on my part, but I was concussed, wasn't thinking straight. So my receiver coach, the doctor, the trainer, they're all coming up to me and saying, hey, you owe me $2,500. And I said, what? You said if you put me back in the game, I'll give you $2,500. I said, I had a concussion. I don't remember any of that. So I got my money, didn't have to pay anybody, and kind of my greatest playoff, my only playoff touchdown, so. And it was $25,000.
$25,000 was a big deal then for you guys. Yeah, because the pay was different.
I was making, I think it's my 7th year in the league, 6th year, I was making $125. So that was huge. And the year we went to the Super Bowl in '81, the Super Bowl winners got $18,000. And I think you got $9,000 for the NFC title game, $5,000 for the second round. So for most of us, that was as much as our salary was.
It was.
And then the next year in '82, which was a strike year, they raised the Super Bowl winners check to $32,000. The year after we had gone there, we were all like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" So anyway, we were just happy to be playing back then, still getting paid. There was no really sports medicine to speak of, so you just fought through injuries. You learned to play hurt. You learned to adapt. And because anybody from those days, a bunch of guys that didn't have a high moral code. So a lot of stuff going on underneath in the piles, a bunch of dirty, cheating, ghetto, redneck kind of, it just was violent. They didn't care. And that term next man up meant more at that time than any, because guys were coming in and out of the game with injuries. So, and as a result, guys from my era think guys today, like wide receivers, you can't hit them like they could hit us. You can't hit the quarterback. Tom Brady would not have survived in my era.
It would have been different. He would have probably been paralyzed.
No, you see, yeah, exactly. You see the hits Joe took. And Joe and I were the same size, 6'2", 190, which was skinny back then. I mean, wide receivers now are what, 6'3", 240, 225, to be able to take the hits. So it was just a different era. So, and that's true in any sport. So I can't even watch the NBA anymore. It's like a 3-point shootout.
Yeah, too many of those. Then you got The rules with the NFL is they protect more of the offense more than the defense.
Yes. But, my first year in the league, they could hit you all the way down the field. Then
They can't do that here today, no.
No, the second year in 79, they created that rule where you can only bump somebody 5 yards down the field, and then you got to have hands off. So guys would run with you and just hit you the whole way.
The Mel Blount rule, I think they made that into.
That's what it was. And my first game against Mel, it was my rookie year, 78. It was on Monday Night Football. It was my first start. And it's 1978. And the mayor, Moscone, and Harvey Milk, I think he was a commissioner, both got assassinated by Dan White. And they were determining whether or not to play the game, because of this tragedy in San Francisco. We were hosting the Steelers. And here I am, my first start, being a selfish athlete. No, you got to play. It's my first start. And so we start, and the field was AstroTurf back then. And the crown was like going uphill on each side. So we broke the huddle, and we were so intimidated. It would have been Pittsburgh's third or fourth Super Bowl season in the 70s. We waited for them to set up. So here comes Mel Blount, 6'3", 220, a cornerback. I'm in a three-point stance, which we were back then, and the closer he gets, the bigger he's getting. And I'm looking, I said, oh, my God, look at the size of this guy. So he gets right down in my face, because you could bump me all the way down the field. And he's got a 7-foot wingspan, horrible breath, and this deep baritone voice. He says, where you going, son? I started laughing. I said, anywhere you want, Mr. Blount. And the ball was snapped right then. So I got off the line of scrimmage off him because I distracted him. So I thought to myself, oh, okay, I just got to distract these guys. And so he just dominated me. And back then they didn't switch sides, and nor did we very often. So I had him the whole game. And then he would almost, in the end, he was letting me get open and then closing it up before the ball got there. It was almost like he was teasing me. Like, dude.
Playing a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was so intimidated by him the rest of my career. And this is how mental the NFL is. Then the next year, I'm a starter, full-time starter. We're playing the Raiders, and just lost his name. Lester Hayes.
Yeah, I met him.
The molester. Wore the stickum all over him. And he was probably 6'2", 230. I think he was a linebacker at Texas A&M or AT&T, and they moved him to corner. And he had a speech impediment, which I didn't know. So now we're standing up in a two-point stance. And I would tell him, I said, I do this with all corners. I go, Lester, I'm going deep. I said, you can't run with me. I said, I know I'm wide, but you can't run with me. You going to run with me? Can you go deep? And I'd say this on a run play. So that was my form of blocking. And then I came out the next play. I said, Lester, I said, I don't think you can stay with me here. I'm going to run a post corner. I'd tell him to run. And he goes, I got you, Mike. So in my mind, I thought I had him so intimidated he was stuttering, not knowing he had a speech impediment.
Well, I didn't know about that.
Mentally, I owned Lester Hayes.
Oh, mentally.
I never had a problem with him after that. And he guessed so bad. You'd beat him on the line. He'd kind of guess where you're going to break, and you'd start laying it. He'd break underneath it, and he'd be between you and the ball. He had 13 interceptions that year. I don't think anybody's broken that record. And then he'd tackle you, and you'd have Stickum all over you. It was like, damn, Lester. And it's like you had to be like paint thinner to get it off after the game.
I think they started banning it once they started using it, right?
No, they banned it shortly. Maybe that year they banned it. I think in 81 they banned it.
No, but
yeah. So anyway, that's the mental aspect of the game.
I think, yeah.
You feel like, and unbeknownst to me, and he was, the best corner in the league, but in my mind, I owned him. So every time we played the Raiders, I had a great game. Of course, you had to run over the middle with Jack Tatum and George Atkinson. That was no fun.
Yeah, I mean, I met Lester Hayes at a Walmart a while back. Nice dude.
No, he's a great guy. A great guy.
Yeah, very good guy.
No, but Eddie was just talking about the Niner wide receivers, and I agree. That's a good core they have there. And there's always somebody, it seems, at that position that will kind of come out of nowhere, and even running back. And tell you the truth, with Juice, who's the kid? Garendo?
Garendo.
He could play Juice's position, and you could give him the ball.
And he'd be cheaper.
And runs a 4.3.
Yeah, 4.33.
Take that beating. Take that beating away from McCaffrey.
And he can catch the ball, too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're talking about with Kyle. Find what these guys do the best and utilize it. I think Kyle just expects you to fit into his system and maybe, find a way to use your best talents. But, most good coaches will find out what you do best and then utilize it to fit into his system. I'm not sure Kyle's taking the time to do that.
I think he just sticks with his basics. He forgets about his other players sometimes, and he doesn't realize that they're useful at times.
Well, and I think when you're a head coach and calling the offensive plays, that's what happens. You're just not connected enough with game management, what's going on your sideline. So a lot of things. It's like, the linebacker who refused to go in the game. I guess whoever the coach came up to him and said he's not going in. And Kyle just said, okay, I don't think it got to him that he refuses to go in. I don't think Kyle knew that until after the game. Yeah. So those are the little things. You got to know that, And in some ways, maybe it is good he didn't know because it would have pissed him off even more. And, he could have lost his focus. But I don't know. I don't know Kyle well enough. And even when he's with the alumni, he's very uncomfortable. You can just see he kind of wants to get his responsibility done and get out of it.
He seems like a Jed York version. That's how Jed seems like. Silver spoons, right?
Oh, it's too funny. Jed, bless his heart. I mean, he's done a great job. They make him $1 billion, and for a guy who doesn't know the sport, but there's not a whole lot of owners that do. So let's give him credit. His uncle is the reason we have a salary cap.
That's why they changed the salary cap into something else, because the Niners manipulated it way back then, and they punished them.
So because when we won that Super Bowl, Eddie had Joe Montana and Dwight Clark back to his house in Youngstown. And Eddie spent more time there back then. And they were playing pool, staying up all night, partying, and they both came out with new contracts. Big contracts, for the time. I think Joe was $1 million, Dwight was like 400 or something like that. So they came back. Bill got wind of this, and Bill was a general manager too at the time. And Bill always wanted to make $1 more than his top paid player, because he felt like if the players were making more than him, he wouldn't have control over them. And O.J. Simpson was the reason that Bill got this in his head, because O.J. in his last 2 years, who I played with, was making $800, the most of anybody in the league, which is like, 10 million now, 20 million now. And Bill had no control over him at all.
He was a superstar.
O.J. didn't know the offense.
They brought him in for nothing.
Yeah, Steve DeBerg would get in the huddle. He'd go, red right, 22Z in. OJ run a flat on one. Red right, 18 Bob. That's a sweep to you, OJ, to the right on two. He'd tell OJ his responsibility while calling the play. And but he was amazing. I mean, he was doing more on one leg, guys were doing on two. But that's where Bill realized he had no control over this guy. Bill couldn't wait for him to retire. Then when OJ retired, Bill felt like it was his team. So it's not a bad way to think. But it's hard to pay a head coach $52 million, if your quarterback's making 51. So, but that was his philosophy back then. And the same thing, after 10 years, people stopped listening. So, and I got to know Bill better once he was out. He was working down at Stanford, and they just gave him an office and kind of an honorary job. And when I go down there to cover the Stanford sports as a sportscaster, I'd go by and say hi, and we'd talk for hours. I learned more about Bill then than probably when I was playing for him. It's because when he took over, he was kind of a smart ass, a wisecracker, loved to tell jokes as an assistant. So I could see where he would have been a really popular assistant coach. But then he realized that he had to keep some separation between him and the team, as a general manager. So that kind of quieted down. But I'd like to see more of that out of Kyle, though.
Yeah, he's got to evolve a little more, but
one time, have fun with Grant Cohn. When he asks you a question, just have fun with him.
Don't let it get to you. Like just be give him a smart reaction, but make it sound funny.
And Grant wouldn't know what to say if
Yeah.
that happened. And Lowell, his dad, was the same way. He would come after you. He'd want answers, and he was great at what he did. He was one of the best. He covered me, Glenn Dickey. I mean, they'd come after you, because there was no social media back then.
Way back, it was different timing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid we couldn't have filled a team if there was social media back then. So
yeah, it was a little different. I like this question from Grandizer. Did Mike Shumann list the 3 top receivers that he ever saw, whether he played with or report as a journalist?
That's good. Top 3. Wow. Well, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice. The obvious choices. Sterling Sharp would have been in that category had he not broken his neck.
Yeah.
He was that good.
He was consistent.
Yeah. Since then, right now, boy, I love that wide receiver in Detroit. Amir.
I'm going to say Brown?
Yes. He's a stud. I like Ayuk. I think runs the best routes of anybody I've seen in a long time. I mean, he's just a phenomenal, the separation he gets. I like him. He's another one that seems like it's kind of hard to get to know. He seems to stay to himself. And, if you name some, I could give you that.
Well, Devontae Adams comes to mind. He's a good route runner, too.
Yeah, Devontae's one.
Jefferson and Pace are about similar.
I love those 2 guys in L.A. Cooper Kupp. Cooper's got injured, and he's kind of done. And
Puka's good, yeah.
He's a stud. They're just different from what you normally see. Guys who run good routes, know how to box out and keep the DB so they can make the catch. They're both, bigger guys. I love DK Metcalf. He hadn't developed into the guy you thought he should be, but what a beast. Oh, my God.
He kind of has that Teal attitude. He has that Teal mentality attitude a little bit.
Yeah. The guy with the Bucks, Evans.
Mike Evans been consistent all year. 1,000 yards every year as a rookie. Going from
11 years of 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And this is how great their organization is. He needed 1 catch for it's $3 million incentive clause because they would have gave him 1,000 yards. The Bucks put him back in the game and threw the ball to him.
Yeah.
Would you see Jed doing that?
I don't think so.
No, we'll save the $3 million. No,
we'll save the money.
So I'm trying to think some other receivers. So there's a lot in the league now because the league's gone to more 3, 4, and 5 wide receiver settings. So most teams keep, I think, 5 to 7 receivers now. When I played, they only kept 4, and only 1 white guy. So that was only 30 jobs for me in the whole world back then. All
Different time then, yeah.
Grandizer 12, Mount Rushmore 49er players. Wow, that's good. All right, I'm going to start in the 81 era on. I'd have to put Joe up there. You almost have to put Steve Young up there because Steve, bitterly played behind Joe. Because I think Bill brought him from Tampa and promised him he's going to get the job because Joe's back was gone. Then, of course, Joe finds this out and comes back, has an all-world season again. So probably Joe. How many are on Mount Rushmore? 4? Probably.
No, I think
Ronnie Lott.
Think about Ronnie Lott.
Who would be the 4th? Almost Bill Walsh, And Bill always said to me he regretted retiring after that 3rd Super Bowl because that 4th Super Bowl was basically his. George Seifert got it. Let's see. Who's another defensive player? But those 3 kind of have to go up there. And then Steve came and finally won his own. And I just love Steve's attitude towards everything. Joe is really quiet. He was kind of a practical joker in the locker room, but Steve's a little more outspoken, a little more deeper thinker. So But those three would definitely be up there. And I might put Bill as a fourth. Who would yours be?
Well, my list of one would be Joe Montana, of course. You got
right.
Then you got Jerry Rice, the all-time great. You got to have him on that list. Ronnie Lott was the tone setter, the culture changer.
He was.
So if I had to go with a fourth one, that's a tough one. Like you said, Bill Walsh was the reason why we got to be where we're at.
All right, so after 94, God, that's
I would put Steve Young in that fifth list.
Wow, that's 30 years since we've won a Super Bowl. And many great players from 94 on, and I was covering most of those guys. So, they just have always had a lot of great players. So there's I just found out today, John Brody's not in the Hall of Fame. I couldn't believe that.
For that many years of playing football, you would think he would get in.
And he was, MVP. He didn't win a Super Bowl, and they didn't have it. So they just had such a roster of great players over the years, and I was fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. All of us who get in the league think we can be a Hall of Fame player. I used to hate that term. I was a starter for 3 of my 8 years, and then a third receiver. And if you're on an NFL roster, you can play. So I hate that word backup. You're just the next man up. Yeah. Everybody can play at this level. So,
We'll answer one more question here from Grandizer. One more question, then we can just call it a day, whatever you want.
Play with the Bucs. How do you feel playing with them during those bad teams years? Some football fly. Well, it was funny. I got there in 80. I had blown my knee out in 80. Dwight got my job. I always teased Dwight. He never beat me out. He inherited my job. And but Bill had plans for that. And they tried to sneak me through waivers on Thursday off injured reserve. 5 minutes left. We're playing the Bucs that Sunday, the 49ers. So it's common practice. Claim me. They came out, had the physical in the hotel room. Then they sat me down and picked my brain to get information on the 49ers and then go ahead and cut me on Monday. That was a common practice back then. All right. So I had nothing I could give them that they didn't see on film. I didn't sell. So I sat in the stands with the 49ers wives and watched my old and new team play against each other. Got on the bus, flew back with the Bucs. I think I knew one player on the team. And, I got down there and simplified offense. Boyd Dowler, the great Green Bay receiver, was my coach. And they had just been to the NFC title game in 1979. Doug got drafted in 78, took them to the title game. They lost to the Cowboys, I think. So it was a good, solid team. And I got in the game. Doug threw me a touchdown, post corner. We beat the Giants, I think it was. So I came home to San Francisco in the offseason. I always stayed in San Francisco. Came back for training camp, and there's a big trophy in my locker. Mike Shumann, Offensive Player of the Year, Tampa Bay Booster Club, for that one catch. It was a good catch. So Doug comes in, his locker's next to me. He goes, ain't that a bitch? I've thrown 400 touchdowns here. You catch one, and they give you a trophy. You think they're dying for a white boy around here or what? Because all the positions, Doug was black, running backs were all black, all the receivers were black. It was still 1980. It's still segregation going on in a lot of places in the South. And John McKay was unbelievable. What was the quote he had? After the game we lost, he goes, what'd you think of the offense's execution? He goes, I'm all for it. One of the greatest post-game lines I've ever heard.
I'm all for it.
And to execute the whole team. So I only played there a year. I got cut the next year. They brought somebody in. I was making too much money. And then Bill brought me back. This was 81. So Bill brought me back, maybe go through a tryout, and kept me, and then I won a Super Bowl that year. So Bill's loyalty to his original team was pretty strong. He didn't have to bring me back. But he had Matt Booza from Cal and Mike Wilson from Washington State, both rookies, and he didn't feel confident having two rookie backups behind Dwight and Freddie. So he brought me back to be that third guy and cut Matt Booza, who went on to play 10 years with the Colts. And every time I see Matt, he goes, "How's my Super Bowl ring?" so no, the Bucks was fun, and I was back in Florida. I went to school at Florida State. So, and at that point, I'd won a Super Bowl ring. Now I was just trying to play as long as I could. So I saw that I was a journeyman. I was that guy who was good enough to start, but we can always find somebody better, and a good guy to fill the void until the rookie was ready. So once you realize what your role is, it's easy to stick around.
Yeah, it is. Like you've been around for that many years, and then you kept it around. So, okay. I guess one last one. That's it.
There's one rule when you play that should be brought back to the current play of the NFL.
I like this one.
Able to sack the quarterback, Pro Bowl in Hawaii. That Pro Bowl's a joke.
It is. It's like flag football.
No, you should just name guys to All Pro.
The participation type of trophy or something.
Yeah, and why get hurt in a game like that? They all go half speed, but you can get easily hurt. One rule that should be brought back. That's good. I think you should be able to hit the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
No, and tell you the truth, the receivers too. I mean, but by taking the targeting out, that protects receivers right there. I've been hit so many times. I had 10 concussions in 15 years playing football. So CTE is on its way. So anyway, that would be it. I'd get back to those two rules where, you can hit the quarterback, not hurt him, but hit him.
Hit him legally to where it doesn't get flagged.
Yeah. Can you imagine being a defensive lineman and everything you go through and you get there and you can't touch him?
Yeah. Even for a little touch, you get flagged. And then the quarterback complains about it. It's like, come on.
Exactly. So that would be mine. That's a good question.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely covered a lot, man. We'll definitely need to catch up. Maybe on your free time, maybe during the draft, we can probably break down.
After the draft, let's talk and see what they did.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. It was a lot of fun to get some good conversation and catching on to speed, man. But hey, man, tell who you are and tell them where they can find your social media platform.
I'm just Mike Shumann. I'm retired. I've had my time. I played 8 years in the league, won a ring. I was a sportscaster for 25 years. Cover the Giants, 3 World Series, 3 or 4 Super Bowls. So I have no complaints. And to tell you the truth, I don't want anybody getting in touch with me. So
come on. Hey, you kind of have the look of Henry Winkler, man. Come on.
Yeah, so I'll say Mike Shumann1 at gmail.com would be a way to get in touch with me. So
okay.
I'll leave it at that. But no, I'm really enjoying being a fan now. I've been a fan of yours. I remember you called me last year, and I saw him, CG Ruthless. I was like, who the hell is this? And I said to you on the phone, when we talked, I said, dude, I'm going to do your show just because of your name.
But you caught me off my attention from the Beast Rider and John Jay a while back. That's where I was waiting for that one.
That's right. Yeah, I did a show with the Beast Rider. So
yeah, Beast Rider and then John.
Yeah, he went to Vegas, I think, to cover the Raiders. I'm not sure. But I follow all of you guys. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I can tell who's full of, what, and who kind of knows what they're talking about. So it's just a whole different way now. And I saw it coming in broadcasting, so I was ready to get out. You didn't have relationships with the players, like they don't now like we did back then. We had relationships with the beat writers, Now you got these content creators who are just, throwing shit out there for clicks, and players don't want to be, come on, man.
Now we get to the real topic stuff and all the real stuff. We don't need to get all the attention for that.
No, but you know what you're talking about. So
yeah,
that's a big difference. And you played the game, so you know what it's like to be hit.
Yeah, I've been hit many times in the minor leagues, man. Them hits are no joke, man. They go quick at him, full speed.
I'm telling you, I ran out of bounds a lot. And that's why I can still walk and talk. So I had no pride in not taking hits.
I had no pride being friends with them on the field. I wanted to make sure that I made my presence felt.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah. Thanks for having me, buddy. Let's talk.
Oh yeah, anytime.
All right, man. Go Niners.
Go Niners. Yeah.